Hi, Josie. How are you? Happy World Card Making Day. I hope you're having a good Saturday. We are going to do a little gel press trick today. And I'm just going to show you how to make a very quick background with your die cuts. And good morning, everyone. Hey, Micah. And I'm going to show you how using detailed dies is really fun when you use them with your gel press. So I'm kind of amazed at the redirect. I don't know how this is working, but I'm pretty impressed. Amanda is amazing. And I hope you watched her video right before mine. She's the queen of the light up cards. And her little trick about holding your pencil still and then moving your paper, unbelievable. Why have I never thought of that? So wonderful. Oh, thanks, Dawn. So if you've never used a gel press before, this is such a versatile tool. Like, I can't even describe to you how many different things you can do with a gel press. And if you want to try it before you spend a bunch of money on all the things like we like to do, I really recommend for card makers getting this 3x5 size. And you're going to see why. It's perfect for covering most of a card front. If you're an A2 card maker, you can practice all your background techniques without purchasing one of the larger ones yet. You can kind of get your feet wet. And I think that this is a great size for card makers. So you can see mine is well loved. I like not cleaning my gel press in between printing sessions because you get this free grunge that goes into each of your prints. And it's just really, really fun. So I use copy paper. It's an ultra smooth Hammermill copy paper. I put it down in the supply list. This is my favorite printing substrate. You get better results with this type of paper than you do with cardstock. So just remember to get all this beautiful detail that we're going to hope to get today. Using a thinner, very smooth paper is the best. So what I have done is I have taken some spooky, because I'm spooky, I love Halloween, spooky die cuts that have, can you see the little embossed details? And I cut them out of watercolor paper. And then I glued that to just a piece of gray cardstock that I had also cut a die cut out of. And that gives me a little bit of dimension. Then I used a temporary adhesive, hopefully enough of it, we'll see, to adhere it to an acrylic block. And what I did was I put the die cuts down onto the gel press to see where I wanted them to create this background. And then I just put the temporary adhesive, which you can see on the back, and then I just picked it up with my acrylic block. So what you're essentially doing with detailed die cuts like this is you are creating stamps. And this isn't the only way that you can do this. One thing that I really love to make my own stamps with is fun foam. And fun foam will preserve these details that you see in these die cuts. It'll kind of press it down in there and you're essentially making another stamp. I do the same thing. I use a temporary adhesive and I adhere that to an acrylic block for gel press printing. But today I thought we would do paper. Watercolor paper tends to pick up these details really well if you're using 100% cotton watercolor paper. You can try different papers. I don't know if you remember the trick with embossing folders where you lightly mist it with a rubbing alcohol. Sometimes that'll make a paper absorb embossed details a little bit better. So you can also try that. But I just wanted to show you, because this is all about celebrating card making and stamping, that when you buy a die, it's not just about cutting out a stamp image. These can do so much more, and especially when you combine them with a gel press. You can also make stencils. You can do all sorts of things with dies. I think that personal die cutting, the ability for us to have personal die cutting machines, is probably the thing that has most changed personal crafting since I've been crafting, since the late 1900s. So that's kind of fun. So one thing that I want to tell you is that gel printing is a trial and error process, like most artistic things. And so I don't want you to get discouraged if the first thing you try doesn't work, because there are all sorts of variables in gel printing. There's how fast your paint dries, which kind of paint you're using, all of these things, what kind of paper you're using. So the idea is when you sit down to do a gel printing session, that you give yourself lots of time and lots of practice, lots of repetition. So I know, I have to say the late 1900s at least once in every live. It's like a rule. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to combine alcohol ink with paint, which is one of my favorite things. If you've watched any of my lives or any of my gel printing videos, these two go together like peanut butter and jelly. And so I really like to combine these two. And I'm going to do black because I feel like it gives you like a staticky newspaper sort of look when you're doing this kind of technique. And what you have to remember, and it's very cool and dry here. And this is not normal for us. It's very cool and dry here right now. So my drying time is going to be really fast. So when you're working with alcohol ink, you want to have all your tools ready to go. So like I have my homemade stamp here ready to go. I have my brayer. I have my ink with the cap off, and I'm ready. I'm ready to do this quickly, but we're going to try. And if it doesn't work the first time, it's not going to be the end of the world. So you'll put a good amount of alcohol ink onto your gel press. And then very quickly, while it is still wet, we're going to press it down. Now, I don't want you to give it CPR because these embossed details are very delicate. So I want you to just do light pressure, sort of like what Amanda was showing you in her live, and lift it off and look at all that detail that you get. Now, I'm not going to lift this up because it's not dry, but I'll show it to you in just a second. But I just want you to see how much detail your dies can transfer onto this soft, flexible surface. Debbie is the tech queen. Oh my gosh, this feels like, I don't even know how this is working today. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that it's working, but I'm kind of amazed. And now Amanda, we should have one of these every day. It's so fun that everybody is just automatically redirected. Now, this is a hand dryer, and I like to use a hand dryer with alcohol ink. It dries really, really quickly. But because I was so careful to get all of this detail in the initial print, I want to make sure that that detail remains for when I'm going to lift this up with paint. And in this case, I'm using a neon because I'm a child of the 80s. Not that I was born in the 80s. I'm much older than that. But my formative years were in the 80s. And I'm using a neon vinyl paint from France that I really like. But I just wanted to hold this up so that you can see how much detail you get. Now, the skull, you can see I didn't really lift. I probably didn't put enough pressure. But I will say, if you're going to make an error on the side of less pressure versus more pressure. Because what's going to happen if you press really hard and you do CPR on your little die cut DIY stamps is it's going to eliminate these details that you can see here, and you'll just get the outline, just like it was a regular coordinating die and not a die with these beautiful embossed details. Now, the beauty of using the black, and see here, you can see where I didn't have enough pressure right here and right here. And that corresponds with what you see on my plate. The cool thing about using black alcohol ink to do this technique is now I have these super cool elements, and we're going to do this again just for anybody who might be joining late. These super cool elements that I can then take off of this acrylic block and just use on a card, and they have that fun newsprint sort of look. That's so fun. So yes, Kendra, definitely bust out your gel press. It's not an intimidating tool in the least. It is a very versatile, very fun, very forgiving method. Now, when I go to print, so this is just my Brayer cleaning sheet, basically. And let me give you a little tip about how to really take care of your Brayers, because they're a very important tool, and there are a few things that you don't want to do. When you store a Brayer, you always need to store it on its back like this. This is rubber, and it's firm rubber, but it will develop an indentation if it's stored like this. So don't do that. I always just keep a Brayer cleaning sheet right next to my gel press, and that's how I clean it. A lot of times those turn into beautiful art on their own. When you go to clean it, you will, what I do, and I've come to this very recently, I've been cleaning Brayers for about 25 years, and I just now found like an awesome solution. I put Dr. Bronner's Peppermint soap in a tub with water, and I just put the Brayer in like this with the metal side down, let it soak, and the paint just peels off the Brayer. It's a great way to clean any rubber tool like that. I put my stencils in there. I do all kinds of stuff. Now look how beautiful that is. Is that not some super 80s paint? Very fun. Now, when you go to lift an alcohol ink layer, or any layer that's dried on your plate, because you can lift paint, you can lift any medium you're using on the gel press, you can lift it with paint. When you go to do that, you're going to want a really thin layer. The mistake that I make the most often is putting too much paint. So what I do is I look at the layer of paint and I ask myself, can I see the design through the paint? And if not, it's probably a little bit too thick. So see how you can see that design there? Oops. So we're going to see if this is enough paint to get this off of here. Yes, definitely leave them rubber side up. Absolutely. The Dr. Bronner's Peppermint soap. This is a soap that's been around my whole life. It's very old. It's a concentrated soap that has peppermint oil in it. There's almond as well. There's a pure Castile one too. But it's a wonderful, wonderful soap for all kinds of things. Oh, my paint was too dry. See what I mean about trial and error, but that's okay. So I didn't get much of an impression here. You can sort of see the candles, but I was talking and I let it dry too much. So let's do it with a little less talking. Okay, so what I said at the beginning is true. It's trial and error, trial and error. So we're going to do this again and lift what's on the plate. And then we're going to do the whole thing over again for anybody who might be joining late. So this time I didn't get it quite as thin. I don't measure it. I just put a couple of squirts of soap in there and go on about my business. The paper is down in the supply list in my description. It is a Hammermill ultra thin, ultra smooth copy paper, which is the best printing paper. So here you can see my spooky skull. You can see the candles. You can see a little bit of the raven, but I had lifted some with the first. I'd lifted some detail with the first print, but it is very ghostly and spooky and makes such a great background. So we're going to make a card out of this before we're done, but let's do it one more time just to show everybody who is hopping on a little bit late. So again, have your tools ready. Have your Brayer ready. Have your homemade stamp ready. It is creepy awesome. And you're going to see one that I did before I got on that's really cool. Have a little puddle of ink ready. Okay, you want this part to go quickly because alcohol ink dries quickly. And let's see if we can get a little more even pressure on the raven and the skull. But again, don't press too hard. Okay, just make sure you press everywhere there's a design. Pull it up. Ooh, that looks great. And again, getting a little bit more ink on here, showing those details a little better. And they can be used on a card, which is great. So let's try this again. This time I won't get distracted. I did not add Fun Foam to the list since I'm not using it today, but I buy mine on Amazon and you can get it in 2 different thicknesses. One, the thickness, which is basically the size of the Misty foam pad that's inside the Misty. And then there's one that is half that thickness. I actually prefer the thinner one for gel printing. So yes, I used watercolor paper and cardstock. These are just double layered. Triple layered would be, you know, even better. But you can see you get plenty of detail with 2 layers. And I'm not picking up anything kind of around the edges. So there we go. And then we will, oops, my clock timed out here. Trying to stay on track. We have just a couple minutes. And I'll show you what this looks like on a finished card. So I'm going to grab my printing paper, put down some paint, roll that out, and this time I will not make the mistake of pulling off too much paint. The gel press is designed to release media, meaning it wants to pull up everything off the plate. Hi, Jen. How are you? The soap I mentioned was Dr. Bronner's Peppermint soap. Yes, I love this neon paint. Love, love, love it. Okay. You'll want to rub and make sure that it gets good contact with every part of the design. And this time you can see when I'm not talking and distracted how I got enough paint on there to pull that up and have my spooky, ultra spooky skull and raven and candles. So fun. Love that glowing green. I actually have several neon colors of this paint. And here's one that I did earlier. And this is why you can see that I'm really enamored with the 3x5 size of the gel press. So it's just perfect for card making. And on this one, I did like the little cauldron that comes in this die set. And the dies and everything that I'm using are down in the description if you want to take a look. But see what I mean about how this is perfect for an A2 card. So I have the skull, I have the little witch cauldron that I cut out of just regular alcohol-friendly cardstock, and I colored it. And then, I have 1 minute, and then you're going to get redirected. Yeah, the small press really helps. Oops. So I have my little cauldron that I'm going to put down here at the bottom, and it'll kind of snake around the skull. And then I will have my sentiment, and that is how you use your gel press on a card. So I hope that you try it. It's a very fun way to get a bunch of fun effects. I have a playlist with a bunch of gel press videos you can watch if you want to get into it. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. You can leave them for me in the comment section. And I try to answer all my comments. I'm a little bit behind right now, but I'd be happy to answer your questions. And I hope that you guys have a fantastic World Card Making Day and enjoy the rest of the lives. Take care.